Okay, here we go. Shout out to Johnny. Today we are talking about how to turn your garage from this to this. All right, people, what is going on? It has been a minute. It's actually been five months since I've uploaded a video. I said I wanted to be more consistent on YouTube. Things just kind of, life kind of gets in the way, but we are back and we are going to be committed and consistent as we can with this. I'm excited to get started and kind of dive into this more. Since my last upload, I've actually moved back to Austin, Texas. This is the city that started my creative career. I'm really happy to be back and I'm really excited to get back into YouTube. So you're going to notice, since from my last video, no more black wall, the lighting setup is a little different. I don't know if I'm in love with this yet. It's not totally put together. There's kind of junk everywhere, but the setup right now, we have a single key light right here, 2 tube lights hitting the background. And if you follow me on Instagram, you saw I was kind of toying with the idea of a dark background versus a brighter background. This is my mix between the two, but we'll see kind of what shakes out. I don't know which one I prefer the most yet. It'll likely depend on the video, the topic, the mood. I'll probably use both, to be honest with you, but I thought I'd give this one a shot. I'll put up the two options and you let me know what you think looks better. So for today's video, it is all about converting your garage into a home studio. Whether you're a photographer, a videographer, or someone who just likes to make content, having a studio space where you have sort of that infinity wall look with a paper backdrop is really nice and convenient for professional shooting. So for myself, a home studio is really important because I do shoot professionally. So whether it's product photography or video projects, website photography, anything that needs a seamless backdrop, this is extremely helpful for me in my creative space. And the home we're in right now doesn't have a lot of space for a 12-foot high backdrop setup, and having the garage allows me to put up the lights, kind of have enough space to move around. And if we have some people over or if we're shooting with some people, it gives a lot of space to kind of just move freely. So I wanted to break down the equipment and the gear and the thought process I have when setting up a studio in the garage. My garage is essentially built out into a square, and the way I go about setting this up is you want the backdrop to cover all the stuff you don't want seen in your garage. Kind of block out the storage space, the lawnmower, garbage can, whatever's in the way. Kind of use the backdrop to cover that up so it feels clean and seamless, especially if you have a client coming over or if you have some models coming over. It just feels a little nicer. This line is going to represent the base of the backdrop for me. Behind the backdrop, as I said, I cover up a bunch of stuff that I don't want to be seen. So really, this is just unusable area. The brand of backdrop paper that I'm using is called Savage. It's good quality paper. They have some designs that are unique, I guess, but I never use them. I really just trust the colors that they provide. On the left and right sides of each backdrop are 2 stands from Impact. I have used a lot of stands from Manfrotto to Neewer to cheap Amazon stands just to see if they hold up. And the best brand so far, especially for the price, has been Impact. All right, so now when you're rolling out your backdrop paper, you need to have it pretty long and pretty high. I try to get it about 10 to 12 feet high, if not higher. I prefer higher, but it depends how much room you're working with in your garage. And then I try to bring it out about 15 feet or so. If you're doing website photography or you're doing product photography, you want to have enough depth to make sure that you can get that seamless curve within the paper. For this example, in my studio right now, the lights I have are the Godox VL150. Coincidentally, like 3 days ago, they discontinued this light. If you go on B&H right now, the last time I checked, they said they were discontinued. The next light I buy and the next brand will probably be Amaran, however you say it. The VL150 has been great. Don't get me wrong. I love the Godox product, but I have a few friends that use Amaran lights and they say they're extremely bright and extremely durable. Pro tip, I highly encourage you looking for a light that has a battery powered option, because you never know when it's going to be super convenient to just throw a battery pack on there and move the light around where you need it. All right, because my garage is pretty dim, I use a 2 main light setup on the left or the right side. Doesn't really matter. It's more of a preference. I have my key light, and on that key light is a 48-inch Angler boombox. It is a large softbox that's going to help soften the light. It's what I'm using right now as my key light. On the right hand side, I have another VL150 with a Godox lantern. I actually just shoot this upward at the ceiling to kind of fill the room with a nice bright light. Depending on the type of photo or video you're shooting, whether it's a subject, whether it's a product, you typically want some sort of negative fill. For example, this is our key light. I'd put a negative fill right here outside of frame to absorb some of that light and create more of a contrast on the left side of my face. So we'd have our negative fill somewhere over here opposite of the key light. Now, typically if you're using a white backdrop and you want that really bright, clean look, these aren't going to be bright enough to evenly light the paper backdrop behind you. So you can really opt for any lights that are cheap, but you want to make sure that the color temperature is equal or relatively close to what your key light's presenting, just so you don't have to manipulate anything in post-production. I have found that the Nanlite Pavo tubes are the most useful for these because they're so small. As I mentioned earlier, I have one on each side of the camera right now, lighting the background. They're super versatile, no bigger than an energy drink can in diameter, and I have the 4-foot versions. This has been a game changer for me. So I like to stick the tube lights right behind where the subject is going to be, typically shooting along the backdrop so it's evenly lit. Some people will even turn the tube light opposite of the key light toward the subject if they want to create some sort of rim light to separate the subject from the background a little more and have a little more contrast. So for the tube lights, I'm using the Nanlite Pavo Tube version 2. This is an RGB bicolor, everything you want to do light. It can change color temperature, it can go RGB, it can flash like a police car. I would say the Pavo tubes are probably one of my favorite purchases. So this is pretty much it. This is the way I set up my home studio for professional photography, video projects, anything I need a seamless backdrop for. You can change things around here and there as much as you need to. You can get really creative with backdrops. Just because it's a seamless backdrop doesn't mean it has to be pure white, gray, blue, whatever color you choose all the time. For example, you can take your key light and put it top down, and that's going to create a really dramatic look, and then use something like the tube lights or an accent light to really create some contrast or depth, or even put it behind your subject facing out to draw a nice rim around your subject. Really, it's up to you. The main takeaway here, I would say, is understanding that lighting is probably one of the most important things to learn and understand when it comes to creating professional content. So that's it. Nice, short, sweet, and simple. I am really excited to be back on YouTube again. This is going to be a lot of fun. My goal is to stay really consistent and committed to this thing. So if you have questions or you have topics or things that you want to learn, send me a DM on Instagram, connect with me on Twitter, ask some questions in the comments. Whatever I can do to help you, let me know. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.